In this morning's gospel, there's the story on the surface. There's Jesus curing this paralyzed man, while the Pharisees and the scribes complain about Jesus' forgiving the paralyzed man's sins. But beneath the surface, there are these two other sub-elements present. I want to focus a little bit more on the second one, but I just wanted to bring them both into the homily. First, of course, there's this clear linkage that our Lord creates by demonstrating that real healing of the whole human person includes both physical healing, the paralyzed man obviously was cured of his paralysis, but also spiritual healing, since the paralyzed man's sins were forgiven. Our Lord's mission was to demonstrate and spread the word that there was more to healing than just getting over some ailment or malady. Full healing must always include cleansing of the soul. But beyond that, there's the second sub-element that I admit was completely new to me as I was preparing this homily. Believe it or not, though Jesus seems to be scolding the Pharisees and the scribes for their lack of faith, he still is showing them his great love for them. Recognizing their skepticism, he tells them right before he does it that what he was about to do was so that, quote, that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. In other words, he was meeting them right where they were. He understood their skepticism, and he was going to demonstrate something to them. In other words, he recognized how these learned men who knew the law and the scriptures, he was trying to show them that he was the fulfillment of something that they knew well, what the prophet Isaiah himself says. When Isaiah says, "Here is your God, he comes with vindication. With divine recompense, he comes to save you. Then the eyes of the blind will be opened, the ears of the deaf be cleared. Then will the lame leap like a stag, then the tongue of the mute will sing." In other words, Jesus was giving the Pharisees and scribes a chance to understand what they were witnessing before their very eyes. As we know so very well, God never abandons his people, and Jesus never closed the door on the Pharisees and the scribes. In fact, as we might know, Nicodemus was a Pharisee, and Jesus welcomed Nicodemus as one of his followers. So even amidst their grumbling and complaining, Jesus was still giving the Pharisees and scribes another chance. But as we also know to be the case, while God genuinely desires the salvation of all mankind, including the Pharisees and the scribes, Jesus died on that cross for all mankind, and for both friend and foe alike. God will never drag anyone kicking and screaming into heaven against his or her will. As always, salvation requires a response of the will and a response of faith from us. The friends of the paralyzed man showed that faith. And the paralyzed man followed suit when, after he arose and went home, he also glorified God. The paralyzed man didn't argue with Jesus, "Who do you think you are, forgiving my sins and curing my paralysis?" Instead, the paralyzed man believed and he glorified God. Now, we're not told anything else about who this paralyzed man was or who his friends were. We know nothing else about them except about their faith and the reward they received as the fruit of that faith. It's possible that they might not have been well-educated men. They might have been completely unable to read Isaiah or any of the other scriptures. It's also possible that they were learned enough men and they read the scriptures every day. But either way, they knew goodness and mercy when they saw it, and they placed their faith and trust in Jesus with humility and determination, and their faith was rewarded. During this season of Advent, it's a good time to examine inside ourselves. Have we been hard-hearted? Have we been not always open to trusting in God? If that's the case, or even if it's not, let us place the same degree of confidence in a God who will never abandon us that the paralyzed man and his friends did. Let us also seek to respond with the same faith of the paralyzed man and his friends. And let us ask God for that eternal reward for which he came to share with the whole world. That most amazing gift of all, salvation itself.